What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about 7 differences between American restaurants and German restaurants. And maybe I could help add a couple more to the list because I've always worked in restaurants. And I know that America does it a little bit different. So I'm definitely excited to check this out. So if you want to listen to that, stick around. Today's video is called 7 Restaurant Differences.
What's up, everybody? We are Diana and Phil. Diana here is from the United States and I, Phil, am from Germany. And in this video, we're going to talk about restaurant differences between Germany and the United States.
A quick disclaimer, these are based on our observations and experiences. Differences are not a negative thing. This is supposed to be lighthearted and fun, so don't take it too seriously.
Just to be clear, in this video we're going to talk about sit-down restaurants and not the usual fast food chains. So proper restaurants where you go into, you have waiters and all that good stuff, and you sit down. With that being said, our point number 1 is going to be where to sit in a restaurant.
Yes, and this is the biggest thing for me. So in the US, you usually wait to be seated. Most of the restaurants will have a sign, or you just kind of know to wait to be seated. You have to wait because a server might not know you're sitting there or something, and you might not get service if no one knows that you're sitting there.
And oftentimes you have a little station, right, where somebody stands and welcomes you into the restaurant.
Yeah, there's a host or a hostess stand right in the front, and they'll usually be the person that seats you, especially during like busy restaurant times.
There's a few reasons for that, though. The hostess, if they know what they are doing and they know the fundamentals of a restaurant, the kitchen should be able to run smoothly, because basing it off of where they're sitting them, when they're sitting them, if they need to, space them out in between by 1 to 2 minutes, that helps. So the back of the house doesn't get, 20 tickets at once, and then we're looking at 30-minute ticket times. So, but also, yeah, the host, they seat you that way. The server knows that you're there. And also, servers are usually they are divided up in sections. And so when somebody comes in, they will usually seat them in one spot, and then when the next person comes in, they'll seat them in this person's spot, and then when the next person, and so on and so forth. That way each server gets a table. That's another reason as well.
Germany's completely different.
Yeah, it's completely different. For most part, you just go in, you look around, and you see an empty table, and you go and seat yourself. Sometimes with better restaurants, you have that they tell you kind of where to sit, but it is still very, very common and average that you just go in and sit yourself down. And it kind of makes for awkward situations sometimes, because if you sit somewhere in the back, you sometimes seat yourself and then you think, did they see us? Do they know we're here now? Because sometimes they're busy and it can be awkward.
It's the most stressful situation for me as an American and usually being seated, because I always have to, I'm like, do they know that we're sitting here? I try to make eye contact with one of the servers or someone that works in the restaurant, because I'm like, we're here, or am I allowed to do that? And it's just very different for me because I'm always like, I'm just standing there. I could just stand there for like an hour waiting to be seated.
See, I have worked in a restaurant where they seat themselves, and then some of the restaurants that I've worked at, you have to be waited to be seated. So I'm kind of like, it really doesn't matter to me. The thing is, like, the server should know that you're there. When you first walk in that door, if you were to seat yourself, like, somebody should be saying, "Hi, we'll be with you in a minute," or something along those lines. That way they're acknowledged, they know they're there, and they're not sitting at the table like this lady wondering if they've seen her, so
If no one
and people would start thinking, like, what's going on with her? Why is she not sitting down?
And a lot of time at restaurants, there are reservations that you make.
Yeah.
If it's like a really busy restaurant, the host or the hostess will ask you what your reservation party name is or something.
Yeah, I mean, with busy restaurants at prime hours, people tend to reserve their tables too. But it's not like in the US where there's long ass queues, or you have to reserve like weeks ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So the queue thing is what I wanted to talk about. So if you go to like, I don't know, a popular Olive Garden, Applebee's, or even like some of these small local restaurants, you may have to wait and they'll give you this little buzzer. Do you guys have that? Like it's a little buzzer and it'll buzz as soon as your table is ready.
It's probably out there, but on average, that's not a big thing in Germany. So you just listed all these names, Hibachi, whatever restaurants, P.F. Chang's. In Germany, sit-down restaurants are usually not chains. In general, we have way less chains, not as many franchises. And sit-down restaurants, I don't know if we have any chains. Yeah, maybe
probably.
the Vapiano or whatever, but that's not fully sit-down, no waiters.
Well,
I mean, in my town, we don't even have really any like chains. They are all like family owned or privately owned or locally owned.
I think also a lot more people go out to eat for meals in the US. You just go and eat and then
Yeah,
you're
I think
done.
you overall just have way more restaurants.
So many.
I would not stand in line for an hour or two to go to a restaurant. That's my entire day is ruined by that.
Yeah,
And
I never see a line in German restaurants, or there's not a long wait or anything, because I think most people will just go to a different restaurant.
if I've been in the US and I want to go to some place and there's a huge line, I'm immediately like, no, let's go somewhere else. This is dumb. Like, why would you wait hours? Is it that good?
Yeah, I used to
I mean, I agree with that too. I cannot stand waiting around, especially if it's in a big crowd. Can't stand it. I would rather just leave or not eat at all.
live in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a very popular tourist destination, but sometimes even for like brunch, there'll be an hour wait for some of these places. You would wait if you really wanted to go to that place.
And then it's not brunch anymore.
Yeah, and for us, like that's another thing with the host. Like if they seat them properly, the kitchen will not get backed up and service will go out fast for everybody. But another thing is, for lunches, like we have to, like in places like around here, during lunchtime is when like all the lawyers and all the important people come in and eat lunch, and they only have a allotted a spot, half an hour to get their lunch, eat it, and leave. I don't know how that took me that long to say that, but yeah, so our ticket times, we strive for 10 minutes or less at a sit-down restaurant.
On to dinner. Restaurant difference number 2 is gonna be free stuff.
Yes, in the US, oftentimes the server will come up to you and they will offer you free stuff. Sometimes if it's a Mexican restaurant, you might get chips. If it's an Italian restaurant or a Southern restaurant, you'll get like biscuits or bread rolls or something. Plus, sometimes they'll just go ahead and bring out free waters for everyone because water in the US is free. And it's stilles Wasser, nicht Sprudelwasser.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is not sparkling water, it's tap water that we use that's free. But also, yeah, a lot of places like Mexican restaurants, like you come in and they bring you chips and salsa and ask for your drink order, and you're able to eat your chips and salsa as you're waiting for your food. I don't know if that's necessarily free. That's just how usual Mexican restaurants work. But yeah, there is some perks, I suppose.
I love that. In Germany, people do not love the still water, and it's a pet peeve for me. I think that is absolutely one of the best things about American restaurants. You go and you get free water. I hate that in so many German restaurants you have to order a tiny bottle of sparkling water for like €4, and oftentimes they don't even have the still water, and I'm really a still water fan. Every warm country does the still water.
Yeah,
but Germany,
actually.
everybody likes their freaking bubbly water. Why is that?
Even in Spain, still water was more common.
Yeah,
I
dude,
thought.
I want to know from people, where are you from, and do you prefer still water or the bubbly water? Like, I can't stand it. And I think that's so great about the US. Free still water, unlimited refills. It's
Yeah.
always with ice cubes. It's ice cold, exactly what I want. That is one of the biggest pluses.
And also, like you said, usually when you order a soda, it is free refills with it, unless it's otherwise said.
Yes, yeah. And by so
That used to be true, and maybe in some places it is true, but anymore things are getting so expensive to where like restaurant owners and stuff that are like thinking of ways like how can we still serve this and still be able to make a profit instead of losing out.
soda, they mean every like Coca-Cola, whatever.
Yeah, like Coke, Pepsi, Fanta.
I ordered a Coke once and I was like, okay, this is $2, not that bad. And it was finished and she just came over and brought a new one, put it there, took my empty glass and I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't order that. But she was like, free refill. I was like, what? But aside from that, yeah, in Germany, you might get a little basket with like a couple slices of white bread or whatever in the nicer restaurants. They try to fill you up with the cheap stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get your meal. But you don't get full on like dipping stuff and all that stuff.
No, but you do get a cookie sometimes if you order a coffee. That's a free thing in Germany, I noticed.
No, it's not free. It comes with the coffee.
Okay.
The coffee is
Yeah,
money.
you had
and
to
you
order.
get a
Yeah, I
little
guess
coffee
you had to
with it.
order the coffee.
All right, and point number 3 of differences in restaurants is order modifications.
Yes. So in the US, the service is just on top of you, I feel like. As soon as you sit down, there's someone there within 5 minutes. If not, it's considered bad service, I feel like. It's also oftentimes that a lot of people will modify an order. So I worked at like a Mexican restaurant and a hibachi grill restaurant where they cook in front of you. At the hibachi grill restaurant, oftentimes people would substitute noodles instead of rice, and that was like a $2 upcharge. And I had to tell people, or at the Mexican restaurant, people would be like, can I get fish instead of chicken? And I'm like, that's an upcharge. Are you okay with that? Sort of thing. And people always get so mad, but like I couldn't do anything about it. I worked at the restaurant.
Yeah, I feel like fish instead of chicken, that's a big modification. That's like another meal you're getting.
Yeah. It'll be a full modification.
Yeah.
And I feel like that doesn't happen all the time in Germany.
Nah. So in Germany, it's less common. I think it's still common that sometimes you say something like, could I have that pizza without onions, please?
Oh,
or
yeah.
could I have the salad without olives? Something you might be allergic to or just don't like, that is not a problem.
In the US, a lot of times people would modify because they have an allergy of some sort. So if they have a peanut allergy or shellfish allergy, they would
Very
have to tell
trendy.
you, and you have to kind of cook it in the back and completely separate. And I
Yeah, and it sucks. Like, I didn't realize so many people had a wheat allergy, which is like they have to eat gluten-free stuff. And this was a gourmet sandwich shop we're talking about, and they come in and they are allergic to tomato or the bread. It's like we literally have to take a whole entire person off the line. They gotta change their gloves. They have to open all new stuff. It is the biggest pain and I get it. I get people with allergies, but it's like it is a very, very big inconvenience. And with those modifications, oh my god, like sometimes people would modify it so much it would come out with a completely different sandwich. It's like, hey, they could have ordered this instead of this and it would have been cheaper, but they decided to order that and modify it 50 times. That's always been a pet peeve. Like, it just drove me nuts.
feel like that was a big thing that happened a lot because in the US especially, the restaurant could be liable and sued potentially if the customer had like an allergic reaction and they told you about it.
So they cook it in completely different pans and pots.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they have to completely.
Do you think they actually do that, or they just say they do that?
We did at the restaurants I worked with.
Yeah, we did too. I mean, that would really suck if they were out there eating and all of a sudden choked and made a big deal out of it. Like, that would not look good. And Americans love to give reviews. So any bad experience, you best believe they will put that all over the internet. So you better do it.
Because again, you could be liable as a restaurant.
But let me ask you this, after bringing out the order, how common is it to like return something or be like, this is not what I expected or what I ordered in the US?
Yeah, that actually does happen. Like people will be like, I didn't like this, or it wasn't to my standards, or it wasn't what I expected or something. And
after they finished it?
yeah, and in the US it's such customer service based, so they would either bring it to the back, or like you'd have to talk to a manager, and maybe they would be like, okay, can we compensate you in some side? It's like a thing. I think some people are out there to try to get their checks comped in the US, like free. I don't know. I always feel awkward if something happens.
Yeah, same. And I'm very picky. Like, also, the whole modification thing, like, I get it. Like, my kid, he don't like pickles. If there's pickles on his sandwich, like, you better just not give it to him. He won't eat it. I totally get the modifications. But when the ticket says no tomato, and you know damn well you didn't put tomato on it, and they're, like, saying there's tomato on it, and there's no proof, that gets me going, because it's like, I know I did not put tomatoes on this. Like, we had a system to where, like, I was checking this person was checking this person was checking this person. I mean, it went all the way down the line, and I'll be damned. We don't give out sandwiches if they're not right. Like, it's one thing I can say.
Happens and it's incorrect, because
I think everybody can relate to this, or at least from my perspective. I find it so uncomfortable when I'm with somebody and they're like, my fries are a little overcooked, I don't like it. And then they, waiter, excuse me, my fries are overcooked, or they're not salty enough, or they're too salty. I feel so uncomfortable because these situations for the waiters must be uncomfortable. I think I never returned anything. What's the right thing to do? I mean, it's
I don't know.
it's
Because
so
you're paying
uncomfortable.
for it, but
Am I the only one feeling like that?
But also,
No.
like, your food is being handled by someone else, so as soon as you complain or change it, I'm like, there's a higher risk for something bad
But
to
also,
happen.
people are serving you, which is an uncomfortable situation in the first place, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's another thing. I think you should treat waiters freaking nice. I hate when people are being douches towards waiters because they think they're better or something.
Yeah.
That is,
I think it's a tell of the person's personality and character.
As a waiter, you probably encountered that.
Oh, a lot. Getting in between a hangry person and their food is the worst situation.
We want to take a short moment to thank our Patreons. We have a Patreon page. It's patreon.com/Deanna and Phil. If you want to support us, you can do that there. Every help is really appreciated and helps us making content and keep this channel running.
Yes, we have 4 different tiers, and we wanted to thank our Soulmate Patreon, Ricky. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Also our family members, Mireya Rivera, Tony Sanchez, Marcus Ottensman, Rudy Zarzov, and Fred42. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Also, guys, I saw that more than 80% of the people who are watching our videos are not subscribed to our channel, so please check down below here on the side. Subscribe to our channel for more of these videos, but let's go back right into it. Point number 4 is gonna be server attention.
So in the US, the server will constantly be checking on you, filling up your drinks with refills, or asking you how your meal is as soon as you take a bite, and I'm always like, oh, right, it's great, I'm chewing.
We had that experience when we were there. They were introducing themselves, they hold a monologue for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Then I basically feel like I'm best friends with that guy, and then they come over all the time, is everything good? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Do you need anything else? You want to be my friend? Like, yeah,
It's true.
we can hang out later. I feel like you meet a new person when you go to a restaurant, at least one. Like the way that it's like, hey.
Phil thinks he has a friend after he goes to a restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think in Germany it's a little different. There's a very standardized way things are being handled.
Process.
You come in, you better be ready when the server comes to you, because they come usually and they're like, hi, can I get you drinks first? And then you order drinks. If you're not ready with your drinks, you might have to wait for another 10 minutes till they come to you again and like come down to your table and be like, okay,
now are you ready?
It's also very much.
The thing is, people go to restaurants because they are hungry. If I was to sit there for 10 minutes because I wasn't ready, I would have left. I really would have. Like, I don't want to be an asshole or anything, but those servers need to be on top of it, especially if their tips are dependent on how much money they make. And just so you know, I know a lot of people think that's not fair, but a lot of times those servers will come out with more money in their pockets than the back of house. So it's not, I mean, us Americans, we know that they don't get paid like a wage per se. They do, like 213 is the minimum. But so people do take an account for like whether they give 15% or 20% or whatever.
You have to make aware of yourself sometimes. They just roam around, they have stuff to do. And that's always the question, like, what do you do? Like snipping, that's not a thing. That's
so
freaking rude. Like you try to wave, you try to make eye contact. It's like, sorry to bother you.
Excuse me,
please come over. Yeah, exactly.
I remember being a server and being told by other servers if they're European, they don't like you to come up as often. I remember that. I was like 18 years old and I was like, really? And it was kind of true because there's a BMW plant near us. So when, there would be a lot of Germans and French and Europeans in general. And whenever they came to the restaurant, they didn't want you. You're really friendly, but they didn't want you constantly checking on them. I felt like I was interrupting their conversation. So I remember being like, all right, when they're ready, they'll call me.
I can agree. Like, there's a fine line. It's super nice. I feel like it's nicer in the US than in Germany, definitely. But it can be too much. So there is kind of a fine line. And at some point, I'm like, dude, just leave me alone for 10 minutes.
We're just trying to have a conversation.
Yeah. And some people, and I've known this by being a server, is some people don't like you to pre-bus anything. I don't know what the Germans do, but in America, servers are trained to pre-bus your tables. Like, by the time you guys leave, there should only be glasses on the table. That's it. Like, the plates should be picked up. Everything should be picked up. There are some people, though, that don't like when you pick up their trays. And that's why you really need to ask, be like, hey, can I take this for you? But for the most part, like, when I served, I didn't really like bugging everybody, going up to them 50 times. Like, I kept an eye on their water. When I go back to ask how everything is, I will drop the check. It's not a rush, but here you go. I don't want, whatever. And if they need me after that, then they could do that. No, I'm just kidding.
Point number 5 is going to be getting the check and the payment methods.
Yes. So in the US, because the servers are so attentive, I feel like oftentimes after they clear the plates, they'll ask you, can I get you a dessert or anything? Or would you like the check or anything? And at that point you would say, just the check, please, or something like that. I always found it a little rude when servers would bring the check already before like the plates are cleared or anything, because I feel like it's kind of a rushed turnover. I understand I worked in the restaurant industry, but it always feels like, come on now. Like,
as soon as it lies there, you're like, on the clock, like they want you to go, right?
Exactly. I don't know, I'm just making up the statistic, but about...
And I get that. I mean, in both, if I was to be sitting down, I hardly go to sit-down restaurants. I really don't. I don't enjoy them very much. But when I do go, I would honestly rather them give me my check pretty much when the food comes. Like, I don't just give them their check when everything comes. Like, you go back after 5 minutes, ask if everything's okay, if they need anything. If they don't, no rush, man, but I'm just going to leave this check here. But I get what she's saying, too.
80% of the people would pay with card while the rest paid with cash. So as a server, you would grab their check or their book and then go to the machine to swipe their card or get change from the cash and then bring it back to them.
Yeah, that's so weird for me. They leave with your credit card, right? And then they charge it somehow in the background.
Yeah.
And then you get it back. I think there's just room for fraud there.
Yeah.
If you have bad intentions. You're just taking pictures of the little 3-digit code and stuff, and you could pay with that online, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could.
It's a little icky to me.
Yeah, it is a little weird now that I've traveled to other places. Going back to the US, I'm like, you have my card now, excuse me.
I think that's the German mind, because in Germany it is still so much more cash-based. It is so common still nowadays. It's getting a little more common to pay with card, but it's still so common that the waiters come to you and they either have a huge fanny pack full of money and change or a huge purse full of money and change, and then they just give you the check and then they give you your change out of this huge thing.
Or if you pay with card, they'll bring a little machine to you at the table, so you never have to leave your card, which
and that's pretty much anymore for us, is they have that system. Like the women or whoever serving will come up with an iPad and they'll put the order in and send it like as they're standing there. And then you could also print the receipt, you could duplicate the receipt, you could do whatever you want with the receipt. But yeah, you don't ever have to leave with that person's credit card. I've never heard of that ever happening, but again, I live in a really small town. I don't know.
think is so nice, and you'll just swipe it there.
That's true, but it feels uncomfortable to ask to pay by card, because I feel like it's an additional hassle for them if you want to pay by card, because they have to get this machine. That's so weird, this feeling in Germany, but I think we're getting into the right direction with paying more cashless, especially.
See, and also, a lot of people don't like here in America, you have to claim all your tips. Well, most of them probably don't. I don't know, but they will at least claim 10% of their tips. But if the money is on credit card, it automatically claims it in the system. So sometimes at the end of the year, like, the servers will have to end up paying in on their taxes, like they would actually have to owe, instead of even getting any taxes back.
Especially nowadays.
Yes. Also in the US, sometimes you'll leave this little black book on the table. That'll be the check, and you're like, I can get this whenever you're ready, sort of thing. So if they don't pay by card and they pay with cash, and say it's like a $16 bill, they leave a 20 and then just get up and leave. And as a server, you're like, oh my God, did they pay? Like, you have to go and check actively. You make sure they pay or not, because it does happen that people try to walk out on the bill, which is horrible.
Did it ever happen to you?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe, but my boss was really good at like checking
and tackling people when they walk out. Like,
I think it happened like once or twice. Yeah, it usually has to come out of the server's pocket at that.
Funny story. Last time that happened, oh my God, these two people. It was funny because everybody was kind of eyeballing them in a way anyway, because everybody thought they were on drugs for some reason. I don't know. I'm back of house. That's front of house. But they ended up leaving on foot, walking down the alley. And once they found out that person didn't pay, the hostess ran out, looked down the alley, seen them, told the boss. The boss jumps in her car and drives around until they find him. They ended up finding him like on Main Street at the smoke shop. She pulls out, like, pushes her car door open, gets out. Were you at this place? And they're just like, yeah. And she was like, you didn't pay, and ended up taking, the people let her take the card, and she went all the way back to the restaurant to ring it up. It was so funny. Like, so funny.
That point, so it's pretty shit
what?
If you do that.
That is not correct.
Yeah, it's like the responsibility of the server to check your tables.
And to tackle them.
Yeah, and to tackle people.
All right, point number 6, and this is a big difference and a kind of a pet peeve for me, is taxes and tipping culture.
Okay, calm down. So in the US, if you pay by card, they'll swipe your card, bring back a little slip, and you have the opportunity to tip then. You'll tip the line, you write your total, you keep your customer receipt, or you'll leave cash on the table in cash form of a tip. Oftentimes, there'll be a line for taxes that you have to pay, which the taxes are not included in the menu price. So say you have a $20 meal or something, and it'll be an additional 7% or 10%, whatever it is, on top of that, plus the 15 to 25% tip that you have to leave. But it's just normal.
It's a scam. I think it's total bullcrap, to be honest. Not including taxes in the price is just It's just stupid. It is so easy just to do that. You know, you have management in your restaurant, you have management in your supermarkets. It's not a big deal. People always comment, it is because of that and that. It's great that there are reasons for that, but it's absolutely not a big deal to include the taxes in the prices. And it's ridiculous if I order a pizza in the US and it's like $16, which already is freaking expensive. You probably end up paying 25 or something, or at least 22, because there's 7% or even more tax. And then there's this tipping culture, and tipping is kind of mandatory. It's not like a reward for good service.
Yeah.
It's like you have to tip at least 20%.
Yeah, like, you are an asshole if you don't tip. Like, that's another thing is, like, that's just crazy. That's crazy.
The US, so it's getting freaking expensive.
Yeah, it is I go back and forth between this because it's the bigger companies, it's the restaurant not paying accurate wages, right? So therefore, the tip culture is kind of nationwide, where you have to tip if you're going to go and be served. And it's pretty crap, but unless the custom changes nationwide, I don't see a change happening. Like, there are some no tipping restaurants, but that's not a very common thing.
But you should establish a minimum wage for waiters to get like compensated decently, and then tipping is for great service. And oftentimes you have great service. But if I have shitty service, I don't want to pay 20% on top of that. And in the US, everybody seems to do that. That's just weird to me.
Yeah, it's yes, I totally understand your point, but I'm trying to empathize. Being the server, it's just crap, because a lot of states only pay you like $2 an hour, and the tip is supposed to compensate to meet you to minimum wage, which I don't think is the right structure to begin with.
But if I sit down in a sit-down restaurant and these prices they show me on the map, they should be like, for this meal with our service.
Yeah.
That's not correct to pay the waiters that low and expect to pay the waiter's salary after all the prices on my menu. It's not my responsibility as a customer to pay the waiter's salary.
Yeah.
It's the restaurant's responsibility. And the tip is if the waiter was awesome. It's for them, like,
yeah,
on
it's
top
like an
of
extra. That's what the point of a tip, in my mind, definition should be, is like an additional like tip. But in Germany, are the waiters and waitresses, are they paid a minimum wage, like a decent wage?
Well, in general, waiters are paid not great, right?
Yeah.
But they get probably like the minimum wage or something around 10 euros or whatever an hour, depending on the restaurant, of course. But if you go into that job, you don't expect to make way more money than your base salary is.
Yeah.
Sometimes even I know that the restaurants keep the tips, or they divide it. There's weird systems. Anyway, we on average tip less, I bet. And it's really dependent on the service. You usually round up, if it's like 46 euros, I think most people will round up to 50, and that's not even 10%, then that's like 9%. I think on average we tip a little less, and it's really a reward for great service.
And in Germany, you tip immediately. So you would tell the waiter immediately how much do you want back, which I find so uncomfortable sometimes. Like, I'm used to leaving it on the table, not really doing that in.
Yeah, that is weird. So, like, so what if you tip them and then you get really bad service? I've never had this happen to me, but I have seen it with a couple of girls that I've worked with. They would come in, and before they would even order, they would put their tip, they'd kind of like spread it out like this, like your $4, and then like stick it down here and like put their coffee cup on it, and you could clearly see it's like $4 or $5. But anytime they don't do anything, or like when they mess up, they will take $1 off the table. Like, I would have been so upset. I really would have.
Person interaction with the tip.
They see at that moment how cheap or not you are. So in Germany, they come to you and they give you the check right there, and they'll be like, that's 46 euros. And you give them money and you usually say, make it 50.
Yeah.
Or if you have a 50, you say, no change, please.
And it's done.
It's like
transaction done. No additional thing. It's efficient.
And if you get change, they open their huge fanny pack and give you a lot of coins.
Ding, 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 ding.
And our 7th and last point is leftovers.
Yes, I feel like in the US there's a huge leftover culture.
Yeah.
I remember being a server and I would always ask, do you guys need any boxes or takeaway bags? Especially if you see any food, because as a server it only helps you, and oftentimes the portions are so big that you might need a box to go and you don't want to waste food.
Yeah, I sometimes disagree
They also call them doggy bags in America, which I've never understood because it's like just a to-go bag, but
with that. Sometimes the portions are big in the US. They're mostly calorie dense. I don't have that problem often because I usually finish my food, but I noticed that people order stuff in the US and oftentimes they fill up on the free things like the bread and stuff, and then you have a big part of your meal is a leftover, and then you do leftovers and they store that in their fridge with all the leftovers from last week, and there's just boxes of leftovers in there, which is kind of nice.
I need to take you to a restaurant where there's so much food you cannot finish it, because I think he has yet to go to one in the US, but when we do,
I can finish that all.
Challenge accepted. We'll see.
But in
what about buffets? So does Germany have buffets? I want to know.
Germany, leftover culture is way, way smaller. It really depends on the people and the restaurant, but oftentimes, especially it's like in a work environment, you go to lunch, people leave like half their food and it just goes to waste. They don't take it home.
We were somewhere the other day, or not the other day, it was a while ago now, but we saw someone leaving on their plate and I'm like, can I eat that? Like, why would you waste so much food?
I notice all the time when people leave a lot of food on their plates and I'm like, why would you do that?
We just look at each other and we're like...
And especially when it's something I know it's great. Why would you do that? Just take it home or finish your food. I just hate when food goes to waste.
These are our 7 differences that we notice going to restaurants in both Germany and the US. Might be a while before we can go out to a restaurant again, but these are just some of the ones we noticed.
Let us know what you think about restaurant situations. I think it's very interesting how there are little differences in all these interhuman interactions. So let us know where you're from and how are the customs in the restaurants where you're from. Do you notice any differences? Can you relate to anything that we said today?
Yeah. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Alrighty. So that was Deanna and Phil. And make sure you guys go on there and subscribe to them because they actually have a lot of really, really good videos. And I really liked what they had to say because I feel like I was able to relate with both of them. And yeah, that's restaurant thing I will never understand. But guess I'll let you know when I do. Thanks for watching, guys. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.